本当によく理解してそれを
Yeah, I think the comprehensive and fundamental understanding of what it was that made the original work in the first place is probably the most important point of a good remake.
合ってると思います。
Video game remakes are everywhere these days. We've just had a new version of Silent Hill 2, the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy is in full swing, and a recreation of Metal Gear Solid 3 is on the horizon. But few people know remakes quite as well as Shinji Mikami. The co-creator of Resident Evil has seen multiple, highly successful recreations of his own games, and back in 2001 even helmed the remake of the first project he ever headed up, making him the director of both Resident Evil and Resident Evil. So if there's anyone who knows what makes a good remake, it's Shinji Mikami. In this era of gaming nostalgia, remakes are joined by remasters among the ranks of new releases. We met with Mikami and his occasional creative partner, Suda51, to discuss their new Shadows of the Damned remaster. Despite the work going into that remaster though, Mikami is more fascinated by remakes rather than enhanced re-releases.
僕は
I personally don't really have any interest in remasters. But as far as remakes go, I think what's really important to make a good remake of a game is having a really comprehensive understanding of what exactly it was that made the original good to begin with. Like everything from the ground up, basically. There's a few examples of that with certain series that Capcom has put out.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
I played and cleared the Resident Evil 4 remake. I thought that it was really well made. I thought it was really well done. One of the things that made a really good remake is the understanding of what made the original fun and a good game. For example, the laser sight doesn't kind of focus in. It sort of builds up tension, when you're looking at the enemy, and there's time between, when you start zooming in and time you actually shoot, when it really starts kind of building up pressure and tension, They showed a really good understanding of that element. Another thing I thought was really well done was the way they took the half-assed scenario that I just wrote up in like 2 weeks and really sort of built up on that and really sort of fleshed it out. Like they showed that they really understood the characters and their interactions. They showed a good understanding of like the backbone of each character, not just the scenario itself, but like even the dialogue. Yeah, they improved all that stuff. So that was really great. The one thing that I felt was a bit unfortunate was the few things that I had offered out for possibilities and ideas. Those ended up getting cut out. But I mean, what are you going to do? That just happens sometimes.
それちょっと残念です。
Always have an out.
While Mikami has limited interest in remasters, Suda51 has dedicated more focus to them. His company, Grasshopper Manufacture, has this year released remasters of Shadows of the Damned and Lollipop Chainsaw, and had previously remastered No More Heroes and Killer 7 for more modern platforms. But Suda varies his approach when returning to old games. In the case of the 25th Ward, he opted for a full remake since the original version was totally unsuited to modern consoles.
As far as remakes go, we made a remake of The Silver Case and its sequel, The 25th Ward. One thing that really sort of stands out, I guess, about remaking The 25th Ward was at the time when we did the remake, it was completely unplayable. It was originally only available on Japanese flip phones. On top of that, it never actually ended. Like the original version, it didn't have a proper conclusion or ending to it. And so for the 25th Ward, bringing that back to modern consoles, making it playable for current generation gamers, and making it playable in the future as well, that was something that was really important. And another thing that was super important was making sure that it actually had a proper ending, a proper conclusion this time.
For Shadows of the Damned, Mikami and Suda have chosen to remaster rather than remake. Instead of expanding and reinventing aspects of their 2011 game, which sold poorly but garnered a cult following, the duo have stuck closely to the original version. The approach allows modern audiences to experience the game as it was released back on the Xbox 360 and PS3. Nevertheless, there are some new elements to ensure long-term fans are rewarded.
I wanted to keep the game as close to the original as possible, but there were definitely things that I wanted to add on and wanted to sort of emphasize or accentuate this time around. For example, there's some new costumes for the main character. There's a New Game Plus. There's a few things that we wanted to use to sort of boost the experience a bit. But yeah, we certainly wanted to keep it as close to the original as possible.
But, as he said earlier, Mikami isn't all that interested in remasters.
Personally, I'm more interested in remaking Killer 7 than I was on remastering Shadows of the Damned. If I got to choose, I'd rather do like a sequel to Killer 7 or something, but that's something I'd be into.
Released in 2005, Killer 7 was an incredibly stylish action game. Its complex story, following the exploits of an assassin with multiple personalities, was co-written by Mikami and Suda. It's another project from the duo with a cult following, and one that has largely been lost to time. Aside from a 2018 PC remaster, Killer 7 was only ever made for the GameCube and PS2, with no modern console re-releases. As such, the game's small but loyal following has long cried out for a sequel or remake.
When making the original Killer 7 together with Mikami, I was kind of constantly really conscious of the fact that I was making an action game together with the guy who made the Resident Evil series, and with that, like, revolutionized the way action games are made. Another thing that I was constantly conscious about was the fact that we were trying to make a game put out to the whole world, not just domestically, you know? And all the new ideas that we had, for example, controller inputs and, the gameplay and the action itself. We tried to make this stuff as new and original as possible.
Oh, shit. There's more than 14. Those bastards are breeding.
If we were to do another Killer 7 thing, that's something that I'd like to return to, is making something completely new and original and putting a bunch of revolutionary stuff in it. But again, I'm also very aware of the fact that it's going to be a super daunting task. I feel that at the time, the art that we used for Killer 7 matched really well with the specs of the times. And if we were to make a new version of it nowadays, people would probably be expecting something a lot more realistic. And that would just feel kind of funky and weird. That's not really what the game was about. So if we were going to redo it, or not necessarily redo it, but if we were going to do something new with it, there would be a whole lot that would have to be changed. Like everything from background settings and the art itself, it would have to be pretty much redone from the ground up. This isn't any kind of promise that we're going to be making a sequel or a remake or anything. It's just kind of two dudes shooting this shit.
Even though it's just two dudes shooting the shit, Mikami's comments give us a good insight into what one of the most celebrated directors in gaming thinks makes a good remake. The best examples are ground-up recreations that study and dissect the components that made the original game work so well, and then use that understanding to expand on the good and enhance any weaknesses. It's a simple recipe that requires a deep, intricate understanding of the original game in question. Thankfully, Mikami's work has inspired such dedication, and the result has been the celebrated Resident Evil remakes. As for the remakes yet to come, let's hope they're based on original projects that also inspire such close study and appreciation for every little detail, right down to the microseconds between aiming and squeezing the trigger. For more stories from Mikami's masterworks, check out our investigation into Resident Evil 4's Ditman glitch, and our hunt for the origin of one of Resident Evil's most recognizable sound effects. And for everything else, stick with IGN.